Look, we've tried our best to make a show that is original and entertaining.
House of the Dragon is truly a scandalous show, but we are used to that from Game of Thrones. However, that doesn't mean this new cast is totally used to the extremely intimate scenes or crazy huge age gaps.
All I can do is do my best possible job in performing it.
Number 1. Age ain't but a number. 19-year-old Emily Carey, who plays Alicent Hightower, felt scared to film intimate scenes with her 47-year-old co-star, Paddy Considine, who is like 30 years older than her. Emily was only 17 years old when she received the script. That's so uncomfy when you're not even legally considered an adult yet. She said, "It scared me because at that point, I still hadn't met Paddy. I didn't know how much of a joy he was and how easy he was going to make the scene. All I saw was, a 47-year-old man and me. I was a bit concerned." But she actually didn't mind it because he was a cool guy, and there was also an intimacy director who worked with them. And they'd blocked it out way ahead of time. Emily said, "We were just kind of mates, so it was quite comfortable." Sean Bean, who played Ned Stark on Game of Thrones, criticizes the use of intimacy coordinators, wrecking the spontaneity of intimacy on screen. But for Emily, she felt it was exactly the opposite. Because she was made to feel comfortable with the scenes, she was actually able to get over her discomfort. But when it came to landing the part, Emily sat down and watched GOT and was so concerned by all the violence against women, thinking, "Oh God, what am I gonna have to do in this show?" Number 2. Father-daughter in training. Emily Carey admitted that, as an actor, personally, in full transparency, I struggled with Alicent's relationship with her dad and Viserys. I don't have an equivalent in real life. I don't have a dad. And I also have never had a romantic interest, especially not with an older man. For Emily to navigate those relationships and the journeys that those individual relationships go on was challenging. She feels that actors bring a lot of themselves to a role and wanted it to be as grounded and truthful as possible. She did find that other elements brought her out of the performance. The dialect made her feel very removed, so having to navigate that first and foremost was challenging, let alone everything else added on top of that. Number 3. We all know this scene. This was definitely the toughest scene for everyone. Paddy Considine said of the intense scene, "Those were hard days filming. It was tough to shoot. It's all make-believe, but it was tough. It was very emotional. In fact, it was a lot more brutal and a lot more emotional than it ends up in the final episode. And I wasn't sure about that when I first saw it. Yes, it was a long and emotional shoot for everyone, and far more exhausting than what could be conveyed in the final footage."
There was a lot of tears and it was very visceral at times.
Number 4. Being struck by stars is intense sometimes.
At the beginning of the rehearsal process, Millie and I, we were asking, when are we going to meet Emma and Liva?
Emily Carey already had a similar acting style to her older counterpart, Olivia Cooke, but that didn't make the job easy by any stretch of the word. She found the situation intimidating because she admired Olivia as an actor and a person, and was just excited to be in the mix for filming. Number 5. Would it have been too much to ask to just close your eyes? Filming the brothel scene wasn't actually too bad thanks to the delicate care the director took in making sure consent was a huge piece of the puzzle. The director made sure that no one had seen any of the brothel stuff until they were shooting. So their first time walking through the brothel was captured on film. She found it to be quite shocking, but in a weird and silly kind of way, saying, "It's pretty gnarly. We felt pretty overdressed because everyone else was nude." Number 6. Keep your enemies closer. It was tough for Millie to film scenes where she hated Emily, because they're really so close. She said, "I adore Em, and I feel very protective of her, like her big sister." So there wasn't a lot to perform because we created that bond within itself. She was with Emily a lot of the time, and they were the only 2 young women on set going through this major shift and change professionally and personally. Millie was 20 at the time, and so felt obligated to take care of the 18-year-old on set and make sure she was okay. She admitted, "The scenes where we weren't the best of friends were difficult because I don't like being angry at her in real life, and I don't want to pretend." Number 7. Now for the biggest pain in the neck. There were a lot of stunts over the 10-month shooting period that were both physically and mentally draining.
You train, you do all that stuff, you swing a sword, and then you get there and you pray and hope for the best.
Matt Smith had to do a stunt in a helmet. Well, he wound up hitting the disc in his neck in Portugal, quite literally, metaphorically, and physically calling it a pain in the neck, saying, "I'm actually waiting to go into the physio right now, after this to do some work on it. But, it's all part of the process on some level." Number 8. Do intimate scenes move the plot forward? If not, cut them. Matt acknowledges that no one really likes to do intimate scenes, admitting they feel quite exposing, do you know what I mean? But luckily, Sonoya, who plays Mizaria, was just really wonderful. The intimacy coordinator made him feel quite safe on set, but he did add, "Do I love that scene? I don't know, I have a question mark against it, but that's the world that we're representing. That's the world that George has written. That is the world of House of the Dragon. And we're trying to represent the books as truthfully as possible." You know what? You've got to have nerves of steel to film a sensitive scene you know will be seen by millions of people. Number 9. Imagine pouring your heart out for nothing. Early in the shoot, Emily and Millie were a puddle of tears on the floor because their scene just progressed so far from where it started that the emotions were through the roof. And then the scene was, you guessed it, cut.
Terrified.
Number 10. Too many cooks spoil the broth. The group scenes were just grueling for Matt Smith. He admitted, "There's so many characters to cover and it takes days and you've got to remain sharp and focused." Yeah, too many scenes had to be filmed over and over and over again. Number 11. Insert cricket sounds here.
The actual experience of doing it was incredibly underwhelming.
Because the whole thing's CGI. It's just the actors alone on a soundstage for 3 days. They were emulating flying on a dragon by using leaf blowers. And the utter lack of anything to act off of made the young actors a bit insecure because they had no idea what to do with their faces when they weren't reacting to anything.
That was like the
That's
hardest day
spectacular.
for me, was doing all those. I didn't know what to do.
It's always so heartbreaking to find out that filming is a whole lot of nothingness behind the scenes. Maybe one day technology will catch up with the imagination in real time. Number 12. Were the actors at least given some hints? There was so much secrecy surrounding the shooting that the actors were going in with no idea what their characters were even up to. Emily Carey found this was problematic for the younger actors, who had no idea how the older counterparts were acting or even what their journey in the script was. They really had to trust the director's vision to do the whole thing. Maybe they could have read some books to prepare or something? House of the Dragon is definitely sticking to its roots with shocking intimate scenes, but it's nice to see they've really taken to working with intimacy coordinators to ensure everything is handled with care. Do you think this spin-off is doing justice to Game of Thrones? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for hanging out with us here at The Things.